Hello everyone, and welcome to the Racing with Rob and Roller podcast for the post-NASCAR All-Star Race show. That's right, over the weekend, NASCAR held its annual All-Star Race, but it was at Texas Motor Speedway this year. Instead of Charlotte, where it's held normally, it was held in Bristol last year, it was held in Atlanta the second year after they had it, and now maybe they're going to start rotating it. Who knows? We'll find out. We'll discuss that. But the All-Star Race was this weekend, and that means we have a lot to talk about. And as the title of the episode suggests, All-Star or not to All-Star, we're going to have a special All-Star edition of the Upshift Downshift segment this week. So rev up those opinions and make sure to let us know on our social media profiles. There were other races this weekend that we also want to discuss as well. But first, we're going to plug those social medias for you, so you can make sure to give us your opinion on what we're talking about during this show, and in general, give us your opinions on the state of racing in general. So go ahead and follow us. I'm at rpeeters33. That's at RPEETERS33. Josh, my co-host here, is who has not spoken yet. I'm Rob, by the way. Welcome to this show. His Twitter handle, is at roller_01, ROLLER_01. And our show can be found also on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, wherever you get it. Just give a good search to Rob and Roller, or Racing with Rob and Roller podcast. We will pop up. I promise you, you'll be able to find us all over the web. We are, seriously, all over the web, all over the place for your Rob and Roller needs. So, Josh and I have a great show planned for you today, so I think we should go ahead and jump right into it, because there's a lot of news to discuss on the weekend. So starting off, it is Rob's Racing Report, starting off with some specific to NASCAR, to IndyCar, to anything. Well, kind of. It encompasses them. But Jenna Fryer posted an article that was very interesting over the weekend. CBS Sports Chairman Sean McManus told the Associated Press that it is unlikely that CBS will make a play for the IndyCar TV rights for the next season due to college basketball and golf commitments, and for the same reasons, NASCAR is not currently on the radar of CBS for the next broadcast rights deal, which will begin in 2025. Adam Stern reports that NBC is likely to return as the broadcaster of the IndyCar series next season after talks with ESPN and CBS did not go very far, and Fox has never gotten past the preliminary stage of discussion. So, seems like NBC is going to be keeping IndyCar next year. You'll probably see it between the big NBC channel and USA Network, with NBCSN likely being shuttered later this year. Very interesting news, that is, because, it's not like I didn't expect it. I know CBS has more commitments during racing time slots than NBC does. NBC has a little bit more flexibility, but CBS has golf. They have to broadcast golf on Sundays usually. They also have college basketball, which would be just in general tough to do in March and April. If with IndyCar, that would be the kickoff to the season. I don't know how you would be able to get that done. That'd be tough. Fox is the same way. Fox has NASCAR. I mean, you don't really want to kick IndyCar to FS2. You can't do that. Not many people get FS2 still, which is surprising to me. It's easily accessible through streaming services, but if you want to get it on your actual cable package, like any cable, Comcast, whatever you have, I don't know, Comcast is the only one that comes to my mind right now. What do you have, Josh? Do you have Comcast down there in Charlotte? You haven't talked yet. Speak to us.
Hi, I'm Josh Roller. Spectrum. I have Spectrum down here. And to be honest, I'm kind of new to available to the streaming game, because prior to me getting this DVR, I wasn't able to get streaming capabilities because it wasn't, a high enough package, welcome to, having to pay for play, type of deal. So I don't know. I can't really answer that, but I know with Xfinity up in Indiana, I know how that goes because my dad has that, and it's a little bit easier to access your Fox, your NBC, your ESPNs. I can't say I've ever used a CBS because I think I've ever had a reason to, at least since high school when I would Yeah, watch a game during the class in high school. Yes, I did do that. I won't lie to you. I did that.
Yeah, but I mean, my thing is FS2 is still not carried enough. I mean, you go anywhere and ESPN and ESPN2. Like, ESPN could get away with putting stuff on ESPN2 because enough people get ESPN2.
Oh, gosh,
It's bundled with ESPN. You have to. Whereas FS1, for whatever reason, has never bundled along FS2. So FS2 sits at, like, high-tier packages. And, I mean, there's not really a whole ton of programming on there. But when there is programming on there, it's difficult for the majority of people to see. And when I mentioned streaming, it's because FS2 is available on almost every major streaming platform. I believe Sling TV has it. I know Fubo TV carries it on basic packages, the base packages. You don't have to pay any extra to get this. But with cable, traditional cable, you have to still pay extra to get FS2. So again, it just leads me to believe that IndyCar really has no other home right now other than on NBC. They could go the ESPN and ABC route. That could be a potential thing, but I don't see that happening given a lot of people's, I guess, coverage qualities and standards and whatnot. Alan Bestwick is great, but outside of that, I don't think anybody liked or even enjoyed ABC's coverage. So interesting to talk about that. Moving on to straight up IndyCar news here. How about this? This is something that I think we all saw was coming, but it has now been confirmed. I think it was NBC Sports that originally broke the story, but then Racer followed it up to confirm. It was announced over the weekend. Roman Grosjean will make his oval debut this August at Worldwide Technology Raceway in Gateway. He will continue to drive for Dale Coyne Racing with Rick Ware Racing, so the 51 car is going to be Pietro, I guess, is not running Worldwide Technology Raceway now. He is going to probably have to find something else to do. Or they could run a second car for him. Who knows? If sponsors have already been found, I'm sure they could run a second car for him. Yeah. But we'll see. But yeah, great to see Roman Grosjean be able to make his first oval start. I have to imagine Jimmy Johnson might be next on the horizon to make that announcement. And I think Jimmy Johnson should give an oval track like Worldwide Technology Raceway a chance in IndyCar first, see how he likes it before he goes to Texas and Indianapolis. Yeah, I really think that would be a good idea for him, is to get some experience. And Tony Kanaan might be busy that day. When I wrote the story about him in May, I found out that there is actually a Brazilian stock car event on the same weekend of the race in Gateway in IndyCar. So I am wondering if we could see Grosjean in IndyCar and Johnson in an oval track before the end of the year. Again, Roman Grosjean's been confirmed. I'm just speculating on Jimmy Johnson. But hey, it would be neat to see because there's been a lot of really bad vitriol on Twitter criticizing Jimmy Johnson, and
it's absolutely horrendous.
I don't understand it. I've said, this guy is learning. If you put him on an oval like that, I think he'll run top 10 without any issues.
At least top 15. I mean, the top 10's a really tough crowd in IndyCar, but he will run higher than 22nd.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And Johnson is doing fine. We'll talk about that later when we get to the Detroit discussion. IndyCar will return to St. Petersburg for the next 5 seasons after the series announced an extension to the contract. So that is great. We will open the season in St. Petersburg for the next 5 seasons. That is great to hear. St. Petersburg, a great street course, one of the most fun street courses, I think. A tight, technical course, always very interesting to see. So a great, beautiful, picturesque way to start this IndyCar season. I couldn't think of another place to start the IndyCar season personally, except maybe Homestead.
Say the same thing, except it'd be interesting to see a doubleheader.
I've always said they should do a Florida doubleheader. Yeah, in late February, early March, when it's warmer there. Yeah, I always said IndyCar should start its seasons going to St. Petersburg and Homestead to start the season. I think that would be a great way to get fans in the Florida area excited, to get fans excited. But we'll see what happens with ovals. And this is interesting here. No decision on Toronto's Exhibition Places replacement race has been announced at the time. However, the 2 primary options is making Gateway or Mid-Ohio a doubleheader, which Mid-Ohio looks more and more attractive as the IndyCar Series will have 1 month off after that race weekend. It's plausible that we could get multiple races. Roger Penske said he didn't like replacement races, quote unquote, because he said they made him look bad. Interesting to note, but I understand where you're coming from. It could be very hard to promote a replacement race, to get something put together in such short notice, to find a promoter to promote the place, and then hope that you can even attract fans. I think it was easier last year because, you didn't have to worry about selling tickets. You didn't have to worry really about promoting the race. You just needed a place to go to fill out this calendar date. But now it's a bit more complicated because you actually can sell tickets, so you're going to, so that the track can at the very least make up some money. Anyway, it's interesting to see that. We'll see what happens, what erupts. IndyCar could go doubleheader. They could just decide, no, we're not even going to replace it. We're just going to say sorry, and we're going to have a month off after the fact. Who knows? Moving on now into NASCAR news. John Hunter Nemechek, the winner this past week in Texas in the Truck Series, he will make his Xfinity Series starts in the number 54 Joe Gibbs Racing Toyota at Bristol, Texas, and Phoenix later this fall. That is big for John Hunter Nemechek. I think we talked about this. I think you mentioned this. This was a possibility. You thought that this could happen. I wasn't so sure that I was going to see this. I really thought he was going to stick with KBM. But no, this is great opportunity for John Hunter to be able to go out there and run in pretty much the top tier equipment in the Xfinity Series and probably put on just as good as a show as he does in the Truck Series right now. Next piece of news here. Oh, this is great.
This is great.
I mean, as for as much as we crap on this charter system on this show, I got to say, hearing some of these pieces of news here is pretty great. So, Trackhouse co-owner Justin Marks shared on Sirius XM NASCAR Radio this past Wednesday that Trackhouse Racing is looking to expand to a two-car operation as early as 2022. So that's next year that we could be seeing 2 Trackhouse cars, which would be huge because whatever basically gets rid of this Rick Ware fleet. I'm going to talk about the Open in a little bit. We got something to talk about in the Open about that. So more competitive cars is something I'm liking to see. Kurt Busch also shared on Wednesday that he has been contacted by Trackhouse Racing. And we talked about last week that Kurt Busch had fielded or was linked to a second car for 2311 Racing. Now we're finding out that he's been contacted by Trackhouse. So a lot of these upcoming teams are looking for a veteran presence to lead their second car operations. Kurt Busch, definitely with his contract with Chip Ganassi Racing being up at the end of the season, it looks like a lot of people are giving him calls. So he's a busy man. No retirement still on Kurt Busch's radar yet, which is great to see. The last driver in the series behind Ryan Newman, who raced with Dale Sr., still active, I should say, still active full-time. Ryan Newman, Kurt Busch, and Ryan Newman and Kurt Busch too. Ryan Newman gets the one race at Phoenix in 2000. Kurt Busch gets a handful of starts at the end of 2000, plus the Daytona 500 in 2001. Last 2 drivers that raced with Senior that are full-time right now are still in the Cup Series. So pretty interesting news there. Moving on here, Will Rogers has been named the driver of Sam Hunt Racing's number 26 at Nashville Super Speedway, with more races to be named in the future. So that's this coming weekend. You'll see Will Rogers in the 26 at Nashville in the Xfinity Series. Also starting this coming weekend at Nashville Super Speedway, Jack Wood will compete in the NASCAR Camping World Truck Series this season in the number 24 for GMS Racing. That was the Rafael Lessard car that they've been kind of alternating around to fill that truck, that seat. So interesting note there. And final piece of news here, we've got a stern bomb that dropped this past weekend that's also been getting some pretty interesting traction online. Josh, your mouth is hanging open. What about this? When I read this, Adam Stern reports that Jeff Gordon is weighing his options for next season, which may seem the 4-time NASCAR Cup champion step out of the Fox NASCAR TV booth and move into a bigger leadership role at Hendrick Motorsports, one he has been destined to since his retirement from full-time driving. Well, he had a lifetime contract. I assume someone was going to keep him along in the organization. Josh, what are your thoughts about this first before we move on to the next segment here?
I don't think this is a Stern bomb. I called this a couple weeks ago. I said I don't think he's coming back to the Fox booth the next year. I think it's especially this past year and a half, Rob. I think Hendrick has improved, and it has been harder for him to kind of separate the ownership role from the broadcaster role. And let's not make no bones about it. Rick Hendrick is not a spring chicken anymore. And he said a few years ago that Jeff is going to be the guy who takes over the team, and I kind of hope that whenever Jeff does decide to step out of the booth and just put on the ownership cap, that he takes on a new leadership role in the garage among the owners. That I was a driver. I'm a recent driver. He's going to be 50 this year. In that he's now going to be tackling NASCAR from a different angle that he can't do as a broadcaster. You know what I mean? And I that's what I'm looking forward to. I think Sunday's All-Star Race was the last time we'll see Jeff in a broadcast, suit and with Fox. So I think next year we're going to see him just in the ownership cap.
Interesting there. That'd be interesting. Who do you think goes back to Fox? Do we get Larry Mack back in the booth yet, or are we still torturing me with just not Larry Mack talking?
I think you're going to see Larry Mack stay at the Charlotte, but I kind of hope to put Jamie Mack up there with Clint Boyer.
I don't want two drivers anymore. I'm tired of the two drivers thing. I need it's got to be announcer, crew chief, driver.
I don't think you're going to get that.
Driver. It has to.
Don't think you're going to get that. I think I would like to see them go to Larry more throughout the race. I think he's an underused tool in their tool belt during especially a Cup broadcast. But I think you're going to see Clint Boyer and Jamie McMurray up there if Gordon doesn't come back. I really do think that. I know you don't like that, but that's just I think that's just the reality of the television situation today. Unless you want to go the NBC route and have all four of them there at one time. But when Fox threw all this money for this, command central for Larry, which is great, and you can't really, it's not very mobile. You kind of gotta, Larry, we know you want to be at the track, but hopefully, the way I've always thought about it is, I hope Larry could go like, hey, Chad, can you talk for 5 minutes? Yeah, in 15 minutes we can Skype call, and they can do it that way. The only thing that is kind of missing is like, hey, come look at this. This is what we're doing. He can't get very up close and personal with whatever they're doing. But that's one thing I've always hoped, that he could just text a Rodney Childers guy or Rudy Fugle and say, hey, can you talk? Because I know that's what he does during the week, but during the weekend, obviously that's a different dynamic.
How about this? Let me ask you this. How about we trade? We go to Hendrick and we offer him a trade. We say, we give you back Jeff Gordon, and you give us Chad Canals for the broadcast booth, and we make this bad boy good.
No,
you don't want Chad Canals to broadcast?
So you're gonna get Larry? So you're gonna get rid of Larry Mack?
No. I'm not saying you get rid of Larry Mack.
I'm saying you
can still bring in Chad Canals, because Chad Canals is just as good as Larry Mack.
Oh, I agree.
Why can't you have them have good discussions and bounce stuff off of them during the?
I think that'd be great. I mean, Chad, I think is very. I mean, obviously, it's an understatement. He's great. He's a smart guy. But I think
he's good as an analyst.
I think he's a great analyst. But I think he's in that president role, or whatever his title is now, president of competition at Hendrick Motorsports for a few years to come. I don't see him leaving that post. I think he's too competitive to hang up the Hendrick polo and trade that in for a button-up shirt and tie. He's too competitive. He's got too big of a drive to want to do that.
Well, the Xfinity race, the driver's-only Xfinity race, what was that? Was that at Charlotte or?
That was Charlotte. That was around Memorial Day weekend, yeah.
When they had Chad Canals there, I loved it.
It was good.
I want to see more of it.
Yeah.
I don't understand why Brad Keselowski was being a host. That one was interesting, but Chad Canals was great on the broadcast.
Yeah,
so.
He is good, yeah.
All right. That's it for the news this week. Thank you so much for listening to that. That's basically your rundown of this past week's news that you've already heard, unless you're not as in-depth as we are. But here's something
you just wait to get it here from us.
Yeah, it's fun to hear it from us. We like to tell you the news. It's good. You get your news from us. You want your news from your podcast, right?
Yeah.
A lot of people get their news from their podcasts. We just aggregate it from Twitter. And sometimes break stories if we reported on it, which doesn't happen as often as it used to. But moving on today to our featured paint scheme. This is fun. This is going to be fun. Now, I went back and forth on a couple of ones for this, but I like the one Josh chose here. But our selection for the featured paint scheme this week is going to be from the 2004 IRL IndyCar series. One of the more interesting seasons of IndyCar. Right after 2003, which was, in my opinion, one of the most competitive and exciting seasons in open-wheel racing history. Probably, I don't know how long I want to say. I don't know. It had been a while since you had that much competition on a racetrack between engine manufacturers, between chassis manufacturers, because at this point, CART was dwindling. CART was basically dead. It was a spec series, one engine, one chassis, one tire supplier, which is normal, but you know, and it was really just not as interesting as IndyCar, who had 2 chassis manufacturers, 3 engine manufacturers, and probably the best drivers in open wheel history right there, dueling it out on high-speed ovals, side by side, all over the place. You can't go wrong with any of that. It was crazy. Now, well, maybe some people are going to dispute the best open-wheel drivers on the planet because they're going to say, oh, guys down at CART were better. No, Sebastian Bourdais was better. Everybody else sucked, and you have to just accept that. I'm sorry. Apologies to Justin Wilson, AJ Allmendinger, and Cristiano D'Amata. You guys, and I don't know how else to say that. Bourdais whipped you guys. You guys were good. You guys won races. Don't get me wrong, but Bourdais was in your heads. And no, Paul Tracy is not in that because Paul Tracy was bitty. Literally, watch Champ Car races from 04 to 07. Paul Tracy is an afterthought unless he's wrecking somebody or getting into it with Bourdais. I mean, he's an afterthought in all the races. Sorry, I'll just keep trashing Paul Tracy. I'm at my quota. I've met my quota for Paul Tracy bashing today.
I think you're going to exceed it later in this show, though.
Hey, he didn't cover. He was an SRX. He was a driver in SRX. He used the chrome horn in SRX, which is fine because it's a stock car. I don't really care if he does it there in a stock car. And that race is for fun. That race isn't for anything meaningful. That race, you're not going to kill anybody if you dump him into turn 3. But Paul Tracy, you know, in IndyCar, yeah, whatever, dump him, give him the chrome horn. He can't. At least he's not, you know, racing around Bourdais, because if that were the fact, he would just fall in behind him and then get mad whenever he beat him, because, you know, he still lives rent-free in Paul Tracy's head. Josh, I'm done bashing Paul Tracy today because I don't know. I've done it enough. I've done it on Twitter. He is gonna someday come see me. I swear, Paul Tracy's gonna come see me someday, and he's gonna pick me up by the neck in a chokehold and be like, "What is your problem with me?" I don't know. Maybe we'll see if that happens. I'm not saying Tracy's that violent. I don't want to say that, but I just think it would be humorous if that's how he ended up confronting me after years of criticism. This is just all in me. That's my opinion. My opinion. If you like Paul Tracy, good for you. Good for you. Keep doing it. Keep doing you. Keep being you. I'm just going to sit here and talk about 2004 to 2007 and how bad he was in Champ Car. Josh, tell us about your featured paint scheme before I get on another tangent.
Well, okay, so yeah, we chose the 04 IndyCar series. This is like the year before I kind of really started to pay attention. And I can't remember if we've done the 05 IndyCar series or not. I'd have to look at the Excel spreadsheet here. When you're talking, I'll look that up. But so I really had to refresh my mind on these. I mean, the only one that really sticks in my head prior to this is Sam Horsch's Pennzoil car and Tony Kanane's 711 car. Other than that, in the Delphi car by Scott Sharp.
Dude, I don't know how to tell you this, but Hornish was in Penske in 04.
Well, I mean, before that, like paint schemes prior.
Oh, okay, that's what you mean.
Paint schemes prior to this. So that was just trying to. That was my extent of my open wheel knowledge at this point. But I'm going with an oddball. Okay. Al Unser Jr.'s number 20 Subway Patrick Racing Honda. Now, this car was just out of whack, and there's no other way to put that. It was base red. It was all red. Sponsored by Subway and Stacker 2. And like I said, that's all I can say. Picture a red open-wheel car. I don't even care if it's the right Dallara, all right, at this point. Just picture a red open-wheel car with the Subway logo on the tub and Stacker 2 on the rear fin, if you will. That is the car, all right, in a white 20. All right, in a white 20. So it was not the custom, like, green, yellow, and white colors that we've seen in recent subway schemes, even black, because I know Carl Edwards had some black in his subway paint schemes. But yeah, that's it. Like I just chose it simply because like it looks like someone slapped the stickers on and just said, here's what we're doing. We've got Subway and Stacker 2 sponsorship. It's more like a fail, if anything.
I can actually shed some light on this with
Please
my
do,
open knowledge of the IRL during the years that nobody watched it. And apparently people on Twitter think I'm disgusting for preferring the IRL from back. Guys, I watched this when I was a kid. Like, my dad did not put on Champ Car. I do not know how to explain that other than my father did not put on Champ Car races. He put on IndyCar, IRL races. I watched IRL. It's not my fault. You could blame my dad almost. He was not interested in what Car and Champ Car was putting out post 2003. And how can you blame him? That crap was awful. I mean, standing aside, I know a lot about the IRL, so I'm going to give a little bit of insight into this. This was actually Pat Patrick had actually defected from CART. This is in 04. So keep in mind, you have a lot of defectors after 2001. Most Penske goes. Andretti didn't go yet, but they were basically at the end. Ganassi fielded a car in both series, which was unique at that time. I don't think that had been done successfully like Ganassi had it done. The only person who defected over was Mike Lanigan, actually, was the only one who defected from the IRL 2 Champ Car, which was weird. He took his team and MyJack sponsorship, and Laurent Renault, just totally forget about this guy. Forget him. Let's go to Champ Car. Anyway, so Pat Patrick had started a team. He had a Champ Car team again, and he had been running it for several years, and it was pretty good. It wasn't bad, but he had run Oriole Servia, but it was running... it was running pretty low on funds, right? It was not a well-funded outing like Pat Patrick's previous experiences to team owner were. So this was his first foray and final foray into the IRL. And actually, fun fact, they didn't have enough money or sponsors or drivers to... no, I think they had Al Jr. as the driver, but I don't know they had money or sponsors at the time to start the first 3 races. So Pat Patrick,
he only made 3 starts. He only made 3 starts in the Indy, Texas, and
yes, Al Jr. ran Indy, Texas, and Richmond. But then he abruptly retired after Richmond. Al Jr. decided he was done. He said, "Okay, I'm done." Came back in 06.
Yeah, he came back.
He decided he was done, and so they just rotated to finish out the season. And they ran through Jeff Simmons. Jeff Simmons ran 1 race at Kansas. Finished 19th. Jeff Simmons, I mean, come on. Nobody ever said the Xfinity Pro Series produced good talent. People say Indy Lights does. Nobody ever said the Xfinity Pro Series did. There's a lot of drivers you could just ask, hey, how'd you guys do in the Xfinity Pro Series? Oh, I won a bunch of races. Well, how'd you do in the IndyCar Series? I crashed. A lot. Except for Ed Carpenter. Ed Carpenter was the only prospect of that early year that actually has stuck around, which is surprising. But anyway, so they ran Jeff Simmons, and then Jacques Lazier took over until Chicagoland, and then they finished the season with Thomas Engay, and that was that. And was that what was Engay doing? What was Engay doing back then? He's been funky. Engay had a weird time. Yeah, oh yeah, he smoked weed, and he got stripped of the Formula 3000 title or something because he turned back with a positive test for weed, which is really disappointing if you think about that. Crazy. So, Josh, I'm sorry to have hijacked your featured paint scheme, but I just explain to you why that car paint scheme and why anybody looking it up right now is probably thinking, man, was this thing underfunded? Yes, it was. It was underfunded.
I mean, I was going to say this thing had to be severely underfunded, and they were probably, last-second additions to the car. But, I mean, and he started and finished 17th, 1 lap down. It was a rain-shortened 500. Who won the 04 500, Rob?
Buddy Rice.
That's right.
And a tornado did.
And a tornado, yeah, that's right. I think you covered this last year ago in May, right?
Yes, I did. I covered the 04 500 and the featured 500.
That's what I thought you did. Yeah, so Rob, why don't you share yours for a guy who we all know about?
Yeah, I mean, and I talked about him in the featured 500 that this was actually his final attempt at the 500, and it's a really sad way to go out because my pick is Robbie Gordon's number 70 Meyer sponsored Dallara Chevrolet, fielded by Robbie's own team after a year before he branched his team out into NASCAR. So he was still running for under a Richard Childress Racing contract at this time. Keep in mind, he was still running the singular number 31. So singular was on the car as it had been. The previous 2 years. Well, I know it was on the car in 02.
02, 03, and 04.
Well, 03 he subbed for Dario Franchitti.
Oh, you're talking about this. You're talking about this. Oh, sorry. I thought you were talking about NASCAR. Sorry.
In 03 he subbed for Dario. And so I don't know if Singular was on the car then, but it might have been as like an associate sponsor. I'm not sure. I've not seen a close-up of the car. But this year, for his final attempt in Indianapolis, he drove out a orange and red Meyer-sponsored Chevrolet that was just woefully slow. It was covered in sponsors, though. You can't say he didn't have money to run this thing. I mean, he had plenty of money to run this thing. It's just it was woefully slow because, well, let's be honest. Well, it was a new engine configuration. So, for those of you who don't know, the IRL had been running a higher. I think it was like about. It was a higher engine displacement. And it led to those really high speeds. And after Tony Renner was killed in the practice session in 03, they decided to drop the speeds basically as fast as they could. So they lowered the engine displacement to try and lower the speeds. And when they did that, it kind of screwed up with a lot of people. It kind of screwed up a lot of the engines. The Chevrolets had been fast in 2003. Well, they hadn't been fast, but they weren't like slow. They weren't as bad as they were in 04. Hondas were obviously dominant, but Toyotas and Chevrolets were just struggling compared to the Hondas because of the different engine displacement. I don't know what it was about Honda that had the upper hand on that, but Honda just came out and had a better engine than Chevrolet and Toyota did at this time. So Robbie Gordon running the Chevrolet, that was just going to be a bit of an uphill climb when you're running an underpowered engine at a track that you need as much horsepower as you can get in order to go fast, in order to qualify, and in order to have a chance at the win. And this was Robbie Gordon's final attempt, at making the double. So he was trying to do the Charlotte Indy double, as he had done the previous couple of years. He did it in 02, he did it in 03. He'd done it before. It wasn't something that Robbie Gordon was a stranger to, but he didn't get to complete the race because, like you mentioned, Josh, it was rain shortened. So during all those rain delays, Robbie had a threshold time where, if the race isn't restarted by this point, I have to be in a helicopter on my way to Charlotte because I have contracts that are in place that I have to run this race for Richard Childress Racing. So he had to run and abandon the car and hand it over to Jacques Lazier, who was going to finish the race. I don't think Lazier ran very many laps after they ended up calling the race. But Gordon ended up making it to Charlotte for that race. But this was just a very interesting because I have the diecast of this. I'm serious. I have the diecast of this car. It is very interesting. It is very cool to me every time I look at it. It is a different looking car. It is like no other Indy car you've ever seen. And this had the old Meyer logo on it. So if you're from the Midwest and you're familiar with the Meyer brand of grocery store, it's kind of like a Walmart now. I mean, they have clothes there. It's kind of like a hypermarket more than a supermarket. It's a hypermarket now, much like a Walmart is now.
It's kind of like the Midwest zone Target Walmart deal. Target, Walmart,
you have
nationwide.
Targets. My favorite thing is, Josh knows this, but I'm moving a little bit down the street, and Josh knew this, but actually I have a Walmart and a Target and a Meyer all within like the same, like a 3 mile stretch, less than 3 mile stretch. I don't understand the point of it.
It's all about competition, man. Hey, they're there. Well, we got to build one there too.
There's also a Menards there.
Well, hey,
the Menards makes sense. The Menards the Menards sells food. If you didn't know, Menards sells food as well. Yeah. But it's also doubles as like a hardware store, so that helps. But a Meyer, a Target, and a Walmart all close to each other makes no sense. But
you have a Lowe's
old Meyer logo. This was the old Meyer logo that you do not see on any stores anymore. I don't think.
No, this is very much dated and throwback.
Yeah, you can really tell how old this thing is just by looking at it. Yeah, 2004, which is crazy to say. I was 9 years old. Josh, you were what, 10, maybe 11?
Oh, yeah, I was going to turn 10 that August when this race was run.
Yeah, that sounds about right. So I was 8, 9 years old. You were 9, 10. So we remember this. But I remember this paint scheme because it was very odd because I didn't remember it racing because it ran at the back of the field in 04, and I didn't get a chance to go to 04. I remember when I was doing in 04, I was just trying to get away from the rain that was killing me. So that day, it was really bad storms that day, man. There's a lot of people who have stories about their 04 500. A lot of storms, a lot of tornado sirens going off. I mean, it was crazy, but. Yeah, so that's a fun time to talk about. But yeah, I just don't remember this car very much. I have the diecast of it, so I obviously remember that it ran, and I remember it as a piece of history. But in terms of my seeing this car, I don't think I actually saw it on track. So it's interesting to talk about it later on. Yeah. Josh, this is a good time for us to jump into our discussions, our weekend discussions. We're going to blaze through the Xfinity and Truck Series because both Josh and I were busy on Saturday. And this is not to disrespect the Xfinity Series or the Truck Series necessarily. We were just both busy. I was covering a tennis match, which was, you can read about it on IndyCar.com. Please go ahead, read my stuff because they give me shout-outs in like the group chats whenever my stories do well, and every time I wake up to one, I get really excited. So if you guys could do that for me, I hate to plug it, but do that. And Josh, are you still you're doing the Xfinity recap for Front Stretch, or did you not have it this weekend?
Yes, I am still doing the Xfinity breakdown for frontstretch.com, but I was at a wedding, so I wasn't able to cover it this week.
Right.
I handed it off to someone else. I was able to watch the truck race, but I wasn't able to watch any of the Xfinity race. I was on my way to Peru, Indiana. I was on my way to Peru, Indiana for a wedding. Shout out to my friend Corey and his new bride Grace. Congratulations again. I hope you're enjoying your honeymoon right now. If they listen to this, I don't know.
Who knows how many people who's listening to it? We just give shout outs. Like if you listen to the show and you want to like interact with us, we'll probably end up giving you a shout out at some point. Let's just be honest. We'll probably end up giving you a shout out. So let's start off with that Truck Series race in Texas. It was the first race of the weekend, basically down in Texas. So it was the first real opportunity to see what track temperatures was going to be like. And I know we probably went to Texas. I know we went to Texas last year in the hot summer, but I think
July.
So it was in July. Oh boy, that was even worse. But so this was really one of our first main shots at really seeing what Texas is like in the hot heat during a day race.
Yeah.
It was interesting. You know, the PJ1, the traction compound that's up there, it's still black ice no matter what. I mean, it looks like towards the lower end of where they've applied it. It seems like that can be sticky and that can kind of create a second groove. But once you get like your left rears out of that, I mean, you're gone. You're in the wall. There's not much you can do. If you're not in the wall, you're probably off the throttle and on the brakes trying to just gather look for any kind of grip that's up there. There was a lack of tire fall off. Obviously, was a big problem. I think that we saw, especially in the Truck Series, that was a problem. And that's surprising to me, considering you would expect a hot, slick racetrack in the middle of Texas in the middle of June at high noon would probably create for a slick racetrack and make for more tire wear. But Goodyear brought a durable tire, man, and I guess they just decided, hey, it's good. We just, pit strategy, drivers racing on whatever tires. It's no big deal. But it looked like from the whole entire onset that John Hunter Nemechek was a truck to beat. And as he has shown throughout the majority of
KBM has shown.
KBM is really doing really well this season. But especially with John Hunter, he's killing it right now in the Truck Series. He's probably my championship favorite, if I have to be honest with you.
Yes.
But it looked, so here's the thing. I was able to catch like the first stage and a half before I had to go, and then I was listening to the rest of it on the radio before I got to the tennis courts that I was going to be at covering. And it was good, fun time. But, in general, it seemed to me like a lot of the races this weekend, and this is kind of a broad statement, but it just seems like there was more crashes than we've been used to this season that we saw this weekend. And that's not necessarily a bad thing because, on the one hand, I want to see drivers on the absolute limit. I want to see them on the ragged edge. And if that happens that they go over that limit and they spin out and crash and it causes a caution or whatever, it bunches up the field, sometimes that could be good. That can cause some action. That can cause some drama. That can create storylines. But it's not the style of racing that I think we're accustomed to. You're not seeing those drivers go over the ragged edge and wreck. You're seeing drivers wreck due to something that's more or less out of their control. You have this 24 degrees of banking. You have this wide racetrack at Texas, and you can only use a little bit of it. It's quite literally like driving on an 8-lane highway that's got construction, and you have to get down to 2 lanes. And then eventually it's going to go down to like 1.5 lanes, and you're going to be driving on the shoulder for a little bit. I mean, that's what it seems like. That's what it looks like driving in Texas. I mean, you have the whole front stretch and back stretch, but as soon as you get into that turn, you have to funnel down into 1 or 2 lanes. And it just seems very difficult for everybody to make a pass. I mean, and I'll talk about this in the Xfinity Series, the Truck Series, even in the IndyCar race last month. It seems like there's a second groove that's trying to make itself at Texas. But whatever it is, it's just not successful 100% of the time. It's successful, maybe I would give it 85% of the time. You can make a pass, or you can at the very least stay side by side. But once you get past a certain line, it's just over. Josh, do you kind of agree with that? And what are your takes on this, if you have any?
I mean, I agree. I think Texas is just, if there's anything to Texas that they can hang their hat on right now, it's just that it's unpredictable. You don't know how it's going to be, especially in the stock cars. IndyCar, it's a little bit more kind of cut and dry, I think, at the moment in my eyes. It's that, okay, you got to funnel. Unless you're Pato Award and you want to go around the outside in turns 1 and 2, you're gonna run single file through there. You're going to hope to get a run down the backstretch, take them 2 wide through 3 and 4, and hopefully you have the right run, the right not arrow push, but you have the aerodynamics on your side down the front stretch to pass them into turn 1. In stock cars, it seems like this track is different every single time we go there. And maybe that's because the last 4 times we've been there, it has been November, July, November, and April. So you have 3 different weather patterns through there, and maybe that's why it's kind of, we're playing a little tricks in our mind right now. But yeah, I just, at the end of the day, I don't know why they need PJ1 in turns 3 and 4. It's there. It's here, and it's unfortunately here to stay. But in 1 and 2, it is certainly. I agree to you. I don't know. It's a mystery to me. I can't figure it out. I don't know how these drivers are figuring it out, especially without practice. So it just shows how good they are that they're able to figure it out. I think Sheldon Creed, he found the limit twice, and it cost him a finish. I didn't get a chance to see any of the Xfinity race, so Rob would have to fill me in on that one. But as far as the truck race is concerned, I thought it was a solid race given the circumstances. Could it have been better? Absolutely. It wasn't one of the best truck races that we're going to see this year. But I think somewhat the strategy saved that race a little bit.
Strategies can't save boring races. Strategies, when you start watching a race and you start seeing guys trying crazy things, trying to hit some ridiculous fuel number, or trying to make it on super old tires, that can make for an exciting race, even if the track is not producing it. Yes, and it kind of came down to Chase and Hunter Nemechek here. Chase Elliott, because he was in the 24 for GMS, the truck that Jack Wood will be in the rest of the year. And it kind of came down to John Hunter Nemechek just being able to run those tires harder, faster, longer. Kanye West drop in there, I guess. But,
I don't know. We'll get into this a little bit later with the All-Star race, but I just want to give a shout out here real quick to Josh Berry. He stepped into that Rackley WAR truck and got a top 10 finish.
Didn't see that coming.
I did not see that coming at all. So, hey, Josh Berry's continuing to show I can drive a heavy stock car. Give me a shot. It's fun
to watch these short track drivers on the national stage, and we'll talk more about them when we get to SRX. But it's really cool to see Josh Berry do that.
Yeah, absolutely. And other than that, for the truck race, I mean, I would classify it as it was a race that happened.
It was a race. I think that's how we've mostly approached most of the truck races from this past most of the year. They're races that happened. There's really not much to write home about them. That's the problem. The Truck Series used to be so much more exciting than it is. I don't know if it's Fox's coverage or what.
I think it's a mix. I think it's a mix of just, and I complained about it. Like my mom, I'm sitting there. I've traveled home to Indiana, as we mentioned, this weekend, and I'm sitting at home there watching the race, and my mom's having to suffer through my complaining and my just pointing out stuff. But
you mean I think it's a mix fiance deals with every single time we watch a race together.
Yeah, I think it's just a mix of the Truck Series just seems this year to have that one truck, maybe two, that just kind of get out there and spank everybody that race.
Mm-hmm.
And for whatever reason, we're fixated on that. The broadcast is fixated on that. And yeah, they dive back to, like, here's a battle for 7th and 8th, but the battle's still going on, and we switch it back to the leader to get a pit report on their tire strategy. Well, great. Their tire strategy is clearly working out for them. They're out in the lead by 7 seconds. So I don't know. I just yeah, when it comes to what race was it this year for the I'm looking scroll upwards, it was race 11 this year. I mean, there's been 3 or 4 that have been like, all right, yeah, this was a good race. The other 7, 8 races have been races that happened under that filing there. Rob, I don't know what you have to say about the Xfinity Series race.
Yeah, I want to get onto the Xfinity Series here real quick because, again, the Xfinity Series kind of suffered the same problem that the Truck Series had, where the outer groove is just still black ice. I call it black ice. Every time we go to Texas, I say, oh, better be careful for that black ice up on that outer groove, because that's pretty much what it is. You get up there, it looks tempting because, oh, you think it's going to be sticky. You think it's going to be grippy, like most places that apply a traction compound would be. But no, it's not. It's the opposite. You go up there and what am I doing? Is this ice? Am I driving on snow? I'm in the wall? What do you mean? I was just trying to make a pass. What happened?
They need to get chains out there for these guys, man.
I mean, really, man. But there's a lot more crashes and yellows, much like the Truck Series. There was a lot more crashes than, again, we've seen the past couple of weeks. I think, we've seen races go flag to the end with only breaks happening at the end of the stages, which is interesting. And there was late race restarts that kind of set up for some interesting dynamics there. That was fun to watch. Kyle Busch winning his 99th Xfinity Series race. If he wins his 100th one, do we really still think he's going to be done with Xfinity?
Well, Bob Pockers tweeted that Kyle Busch said that JGR has already sold races for him to drive next year in the Xfinity Series.
So he's not done. He has to.
He wouldn't be done at least next year. And I never really believed that he would retire, kind of hang it up, especially when he's only going to have 5 per year. And
if he wins 5 races per year in the Xfinity Series, can you really be mad about that?
And he's not even winning the Xfinity Series.
If he doesn't win, can you even be mad about him?
Rob, I don't want to show my card too much on this because I think it's an idea I have for a future show and a question. But I'm not upset that he won the race. I'm not upset that he's going to win 100 within the next 12 months, 16 months, most likely. I don't care. That doesn't really bother me. He's a great talent. He deserves to win it. I know, but he's going to get 100 and he's going to race next year. We know that. That's what you can tell. So if you've been worried about that, if that's been your question, Bob Pockers answered it for you. He tweeted it out there. You can go check his Twitter handle in case you think we're just blowing smoke up your butt.
That's all I really. That's the only question. All I put here is he done after 100? Question mark. That's all I asked.
Let me ask you: Did you think he was going to hang it up after 100? Did you really think he would hang up the helmet after he got the 100th win and say, "I'm gone"?
I didn't say hang up the helmet. I mean, if he wants to be done with the Xfinity Series and just focus on Cup and Truck, I wouldn't even have minded that. If he wants to run a bunch of truck races,
the Xfinity race. Do you think he would have hung up the Xfinity helmet after he got 100 wins? Did you really believe it when he said that? Whenever that was,
that was about 50-50. I mean, yeah. I knew sponsorships and prior commitments were probably going to prevent a lot of that, but. If Kyle goes up and tells Joe, the coach, he's like, "Hey, I've done everything I need to do in the Xfinity Series. I don't know why I need to be running down here." I mean, the only reason that Kyle is running it is because when the Xfinity Series runs on new tracks, that's where he's going. So he's going to be at Nashville, right?
I can't remember if he's at Nashville. Yes, he is. He's at Nashville because he's in. I think him and Reddick are the only two Cup guys in it.
So yeah, I mean, the thing is,
Anderson's car.
If Kyle's just going out there to get some extra experience for himself, I mean, if he wins, great, cool. A guy who showed up in a glorified R&D car just whipped the whole field. Great. It's Kyle Busch, dude. If he shows up on Sunday and does the same thing, everybody will just write it off to KFP. I mean, that's the thing. Yeah. I mean, that's how I feel. All right. Moving on here to IndyCar in Detroit. This one was. Okay, so I crapped on Detroit all week. And
I'm going to say, you crapped on Detroit. This turned out to be a pretty good weekend, man.
This is what always happens.
I'm thinking about this entire time.
Every time I go on the show and I crap on something, I just say, no, it's awful, it's bad. I say, it's not going to be a good race. It's not going to be a good event. Or this guy's not going to be very good in the race. What ends up happening is the exact opposite of what I say ends up being true.
Well, here's what we need you to do, Rob. Every single time. Every week, we need you to just crap on how bad the racing is going to be, and we're going to have the best season ever.
It sounds like that's the only way it'll work because I'm sitting here in at the tennis match, right? And I'm watching it, and I'm trying to stay off my phone because I'm trying to be a good reporter and really get a sense of idea of what's going on, right? I'm trying to do good, do my job, stay off Twitter, and all of a sudden I find out Rosenqvist is in the wall hard, and the race is not as bad as I thought it was going to be. There's actually more passing, there's good strategy, there's all this stuff. I'm just sitting here like, I accepted this. I specifically accepted this assignment because I figured it would be on during the IndyCar race, and I just did not care about Detroit. So I figured, all right, this is going to be a race I'm not going to care if I miss or not, so I'll just go ahead and get some extra cash, get some extra money, get some byline in there in the paper the next day, and that won't matter. But no, Rosenqvist crashes. He's out. That was scary. Holy cow, man.
Well, I was flipping back and forth, and next thing I know, I see Rosenqvist up on the wall. I'm like, what in the world happened there? And they're saying, it was a vicious crash, hard crash, and I'm like, ooh, that's not good. They didn't show a replay. Like they showed a replay, and then they didn't show a replay until he was out extricated from the car. Obviously, glad to see or hear that when who's the doctor for IndyCar? His name's slipping my mind. He gets out there and goes, he's okay. He's waking alert, and it's kind of nice to know that they're taking their time, which is a good thing. If there was hustle and bustle, that's where the bells and whistles are going off in your head, saying something's wrong. And then they took him to the Infield Care Center first is a good sign that they didn't rush him to the hospital. So there's a lot of good things that happened there that maybe if you had just tuned in and you're new, you're like, oh my gosh, is this guy okay? Is he going to be all right? But yeah, that was a very scary wreck. I'm watching the replay the first time. I felt the impact, and I'm like, oh my gosh. I didn't like that at all. That's a horrible. I can't even begin to fathom what that feeling's like. But I'm like, I was scared, and it was a replay 12 feet away on a television. I didn't like that at all.
I don't blame you. It was a scary accident. I saw it. I see. Here's the thing. I pulled it up. I said, screw it. I gotta find out what happened. I pulled it up and I pulled up the replay, and I'm just sitting there speechless. I just couldn't believe it. And when they told him he was awake, when I found out he was awake and alert, I was so thankful, you know, because look, if you don't follow soccer, like you don't know what happened in the morning. Like I'm sitting there in the morning. You saw this. Christian Eriksen goes down in cardiac arrest. Now I'm a Tottenham fan. Christian Eriksen played for Tottenham, so I know him. Like I am invested in him as a fan. That scared me. So I'm scared about Christian. I mean, he doesn't play for Tottenham anymore, but I still like him as a player. It doesn't matter. I mean, his Spurs forever. You know what I mean? To dare is to do. I'm just saying. But I was just so scared by that, and then seeing Rosenqvist have that same accident, I'm just just a sinking feeling, a scary morning. I think, and an afternoon for all of us in the sports world. I think, but just glad to see Rosenqvist get out of there. And I guess he's eaten. He was hanging out with Marcus Ericsson, I guess. Ericsson posted about it on Twitter. And Ericsson ended up winning this race. And I'm going to talk about why Ericsson won this race, because Will Power had the lead the whole time. Will Power was dominant. Will Power was going to lead. Penske has got screwed both races.
They did.
I mean, really. Penske cars got kind of screwed both races. Not screwed, but like kind of bad luck happened to them.
Yeah, let's talk about
screwed. Newgarden didn't get screwed in race 2. He just had bad. He just got passed.
I think Will Power got screwed by procedure.
Yes, Power got screwed 100% by procedure. Because so I'll sum this up for those of you who haven't seen it.
Great interview.
Yeah, NBC went off the air way before this even aired. I don't know. People said they tried the NBC Sports app. They couldn't find it. People said it wasn't on Peacock. I don't know.
You had to see it on the app. It was on social media.
Well, they stayed with it on Sky F1, so most of what you were seeing from it was from like UK viewers who were actually able to see the interview. Will Power was mad, and he's mad because when he pulls in, he's the first car there, and they did not put any fans on his ECU.
Yeah, the procedure is that all cars must basically come to a stop before the tower gives crews permission to attend to the vehicles.
Yeah.
And during that time, I mean, the guy in the back can be going super slow, you know, and taking his sweet time, all the while the ECU is frying because it's overheating. It's overheating. It's not getting.
And
cool.
it was hot on Saturday.
And it was hot. The humidity was ridiculous. I think it was like the humidity was making a 14-degree difference on Saturday.
I think so, because it had rained earlier in the day. I think
it was very hot in Detroit. Particularly with the humidity. So I think he's right. I love Will Power's passion that he was so mad. The first thing that came to my mind is like, is he going to get fined by the series that his team owner owns? And I'm kind of glad we didn't hear anything about it. I don't think I heard anyone answer the question, is Will Power going to be fined? Based off of, basically, he said ass twice, and he basically called the IndyCar
on a broadcast barely anybody saw. Oh no.
Yeah, and that he basically called IndyCar officials out for not listening to the drivers, really criticizing them. I don't think an IndyCar driver has done it in a long time. So I appreciate that. And I think he's got a point. He's like, look, allow my guy to go out there and attend to my car right away. Because it is in that case right there. First, I think he was mad that there was a red flag. That that have been a red flag is very questionable. I think that was IndyCar taking a rule book out of NASCAR and going for the entertainment side instead of the race purity side. Could have,
in my opinion, and I'm sorry to interrupt you, but in my opinion, they could have easily cleaned the accident up, gotten Grosjean's car like off the track. I probably had at the very least a one lap, like a green white kind of situation. I think they could have at the very least thrown the green and white, give a one lap restart.
They might even had
at the very least get a green finish.
Yeah, it was very so that was frustrating.
That was a second red flag, and that was why the coverage ran over time, so we didn't even get to see this amazing interview.
Yeah, so I mean, if you haven't seen it, go to NBC IndyCar Twitter or Instagram, and you can find it on there. It's a very passionate interview. I mean, he actually ended up walks away basically after Alexander Rossi comes up to him, and he said, "Rossi didn't got me lucky either." So it just, and again, I tweeted, "Don't ever question these guys' passion to win a race," because right there was just a demonstration that he wants to win. He's frustrated he hasn't won, now that was the 7th race of the year of a currently 16 race schedule, potentially 17, and he has not won yet. And he wants to win, and he wants to win for his team owner, just like every single one guy out there. And I think he had one stolen. Did
you see the stat that this is Penske's worst start to a season since 1999?
I did see that. Yeah,
that was when they were still building their own chassis, and they had Al Jr. and whoever else was in the second car.
It's amazing how a weekend can change that, because in reality, you could have had a Penske sweep, and then you're going to say, well, Penske's back on track. They're threats to win the championship again. And
now we're putting out that stat.
And now we're putting out that. And I think that was absolutely, that's just how quickly fortunes can change in racing. And
speaking of fortunes,
let's talk about race 2.
You want to talk about good fortunes? Marcus Ericsson actually ended up winning that race.
Yes.
And that's his first IndyCar race, and they said on the broadcast too, and I looked it up, it was true. That's his first win, period, since he was in GP2.
In 2013.
Which is crazy, because that's the thing. I remember watching those tape-delayed GP2 broadcasts at really weird hours, back then. And watching Marcus Ericsson run. I was impressed with him back then. I still have been. I always have been. But, man, when Ericsson was back in GP2, he was something else, man. So it's good to see him finally get this kind of monkey off of his back, where people have been like wondering, oh, well, is he good or is he a pay drop? No, Marcus Ericsson is good. He always has been good. Ignore the fact that he has money. He's good, okay? That's what matters. Money can't buy talent. Money can buy race cars, but it can't buy talent. And Marcus Ericsson has talent. So congrats to Marcus. I mean, that's just awesome.
Definitely good to see. Definitely good to see. If you can't have a guy who definitely deserved to win, you want to see a guy like that steal it. The guy who's 100%. He was owed one. This guy was owed one, and he's been owed one for a few years. I don't think racing owes anyone anything, but in that line of saying, look, willpower deserved to win that race. He got Detroit screwball there. All right. Marcus Ericsson was the beneficiary, and it had been a while since he tasted victory champagne.
So race 2 was a bit less hectic, but also more hectic, if that makes any sense. No big crashes. But you did have a really great run to the finish.
You had a great
between Newgarden and Pato O'Ward. So you have another late yellow. Basically.
2 late yellows. Yeah, 2 late yellows.
And first of all, I want to say, before I get too far into this, on the start, that was crazy, whatever Scott Dixon did.
I don't know. The dude's got a horseshoe that is the luckiest horseshoe in the world. Whatever he is, he needs to cut just a little bit of that off and throw it to the 48 car. For crying out loud.
I mean, that was insane. I thought for sure we were going to have a big pileup.
He should have snapped back left and into the wall. When I saw that, I was like, you've got to be kidding me.
That was the most impressive. I mean, I held my breath from there, and then as soon as it was over, I just had to stop and appreciate the talent of Scott Dixon and Alexander Rossi as well, who was involved in that. You just have to stop and appreciate those guys, catch your breath for a minute, and be like, man, these guys are really good. They are at the top of their game. And really, we had a great battle between Newgarden and Pato O'Ward there. And Pato was coming. Newgarden was coming. I mean, it looked like, this is the thing. I think Newgarden, the strategy didn't play out for Newgarden. I think the problem is you had Newgarden was on older reds. He was on, 3-lap-old reds that were starting to fall off.
Yeah, he had scuff. He put scuffs on, 3-lap scuff.
Yeah, so he was on scuff reds. And Pato was on brand new primaries.
Mm-hmm.
So those reds basically have lost their luster already.
I think if he didn't have to handle that second caution.
Yeah, if he didn't have a second restart, I think he would have had it. But Pato was just flying, and he making those turns into the first turn. I mean, he was doing it both days. He was going crazy, making crazy moves, trying to get through. And he goes up, and as soon as he passes Newgarden, you could just see Newgarden is holding up the rest of the field. He was literally holding up. He finished second. Good for Newgarden. But I wonder what would have happened if Colton Herta could have just gotten by him earlier and gone and fought with Pato. I think that would have been
got passed by Pelot. So it was kind of Pelot at that point.
Well, Pelot, yeah, I'm sorry, I forgot about Pelot.
Yeah, I felt bad for Newgarden in that sense, because his strategy was screwed from lap 1 because I got a caution on lap 1, and like that's like, you've got to be kidding me. And that's the worst. That's what makes IndyCar so exciting, though. A caution on lap 1 can change the whole strategical game for you, and that's exactly what happened to them. And you feel bad for that one. If they didn't have the. What was the last caution for? Yeah, it was for Roman Grosjean having brake fire.
Yeah, how about this? He caught on fire again, first of all.
Well, I thought for a second, I was a little scared, because I thought he was, I mean, okay, I don't say this lightly, I'm saying this is what really went through my mind. I thought he was having a PTSD moment, because he was rapidly getting out of that car. And then I figured out, he's not worried about that. He's worried about the car being on fire. He was trying to find a fire extinguisher to put the fire out. And I'm like, and he couldn't find one quick enough, and then he kind of gets pushed away by AMR, like, I just want to put the fire out of my car, I want to save the car. I mean, it's an expensive fix. So I think
he didn't want to deal with fire at all. I think as soon as he saw the brakes start to heat up and start to, catch fire, I think he was like, all right, I'm out. I'm going to put this out myself. I'm not touching this. Yeah. I'm out. I'm not even going to try to drive back to the garage with this. I'm out. I'm going to go.
Well, I think any other driver was going to do that. I think any other driver like discovers or a team that says, "Hey, your brakes are on fire. Your brakes have failed."
Not always. I mean, you've seen drivers come into the pits with overheating and sometimes on fire brakes. It's not uncommon. I just think Grosjean saw the flames and probably just figured, all right, what's at the end of the race? We're out of contention. I'm not going to mess with this. He had to do a
pass-through penalty for avoidable contact with Harvey, yeah.
So he probably's figuring, I'm done. I'm just surprised it took the medical team as long as it did, but at the same time, I'm not. It's surprising to me a little bit that the marshals on the side of the track didn't have fire extinguishers ready to go. That was kind of surprising to me personally. Because when Grosjean went over to the marshals, he's going to the marshals to be like, "Hey, bring me a fire extinguisher! Bring me a fire extinguisher!"
Yeah.
And the marshals like scrambling, like, hold on, let me find it. Here you go." And by the time he finally gets this extinguisher, now the safety team is there. So just an interesting series of events there. Glad Grosjean's okay.
Yeah. Also, let's talk. I want to add this too. Oliver Askew was called to substitute for Felix Rosenqvist, the guy who replaced him. I mean, let's just talk about that little bit of irony. I was kind of shocked that he was the guy. I didn't expect that either. I think I would have been less shocked if McLaren just said, we're not fielding the car tomorrow. I mean, that's what I was. I
thought they were going to do what they did last year when Askew was out and just be like, "Hey, Elio, you doing anything?" "No, I'm in SRX. Can you get to Detroit real quick?"
He could have done that. He could have raced at SRX on Saturday night and got to Detroit the next day. He could have done that.
Stafford's up in, where's Stafford?
Connecticut. I mean, that's not a long flight. He could have got there overnight.
It'd be a red-eye flight, but I mean, he could have done. I don't know. I assume Askew was the better choice, and I guess he was already there.
Yeah,
he was there for IMSA, right?
He was there. He was like a driver coach for Andretti, and
right. But he's running an IMSA now, isn't he?
Did his class run?
I think it did.
I thought so. I thought they ran all four classes. But
anyway, my point is, I think we should move on to the All-Star Race because that's what we really got to talk about.
We got that SRX left.
Yeah, I mean, we got SRX. SRX can be fun, but the All-Star Race, I got to get a couple of things out of my way first. So first of all, I don't know how you call this a race. This was 6 individual heats. This was not a full race. This was 6 individual heats. And 5 of them didn't pay anything. 5 of them didn't count. Mm-hmm. 1 did. I had major problems with... Okay, I'll just be straight. I had major problems with the All-Star Race in its current form. And I'm going to expand on this later in the upshift, downshift, but I want to get this out of the way first. First of all, the Open. The Open was cool a long time ago. It's not cool anymore. Okay? When you let 2 guys basically, get in for winning a round, that's not anything. The rounds don't mean anything. You can't. it is a field filler. I'm sorry, Ross Chastain was not necessarily a field filler, but he kind of was. Same with Eric Almirola, also kind of a field filler. And
who's the
fan vote winner of Reddick? Well,
Reddick won around, and then DiBenedetto won the fan vote.
DiBenedetto won the fan vote. So you had 3 drivers and plus DiBenedetto. So you had Reddick, you had Chastain, you had Almirola, and you had DiBenedetto. Not saying there's anything wrong with those guys, but it would have been a lot more fun to just watch those 4 guys race each other in a 30-lap sprint to try and get into the All-Star race. I'm just saying. And you compile the fact that in 20 laps, you had 5 cars go a lap down at Texas. 20 laps. Less than that for some of them. Quinn Houff went down a lap, I think, with like 5 laps to go in the round.
They have to participate.
I mean, at some point, I have to question and wonder why these guys showed up.
They have to. If you own a charter, you have to participate. No.
I'm asking the guys who don't own a charter because MBM brought cars there.
Yeah.
And they were slow, too. They were also a lap down. I praised MBM at the Daytona 500 because, yes, they were faster than the Rick Ware cars. But the Rick Ware cars were faster than them here. And to be honest with you, I have to question why. Now, I thought the Open would be a chance for Open teams to run. They really didn't. And then you combine that, and here's also what I'm going to say.
Look, you're not to interrupt you, Rob, but I think you're somewhat missing one thing. I think a lot of people on Twitter pointed out too. I think MBM was hoping for Timmy Hill to get the fan vote. In that NASCAR released the fan vote the day before, the top drivers were like DiBenedetto, Wallace, Suarez. I can't remember the other 2 now. But
I believe Bubba didn't make the fan vote. I thought for sure Bubba would make the fan vote, but
if
Danica can get the fan vote for years, how did Bubba not get the fan vote?
I think people were pointing out though that like Timmy Hill, like people were saying BS Timmy Hill is not in the top 5 right now. You know, I think that was kind of like I honestly think that's why MBM brought Timmy Hill in the 66.
But they brought the 13 too.
I can't speak to that.
Luck, they were hoping for 13.
They're hoping for people to crash out.
I guess.
And they just about did.
It's weird to me. It's just weird to me. It's really weird to me. I feel like Ryan Preece, I understand why he didn't. I understand why JTG didn't, but I would have preferred to see like a legitimately competitive Open car try to race into the All-Star race. And I understand why they didn't. I'm not criticizing them. I'm not criticizing JTG for not entering that car. They have no obligation to. They have no reason to. But I'm saying as a fan, I would have preferred to see that over what I ended up seeing. When we move on to the actual All-Star race, again, and I crap on the lower horsepower packages, and I do that.
It was even lower horsepower this week.
But there's tracks where it works. Okay, there's tracks where it works. I don't want to say it actually works at Texas, because I don't think it does. Because what we saw in the All-Star race was like NASCAR was trying to. It's like they're trying to make mile-and-a-half racetracks drive like Talladega and Daytona. You have this momentum-based racing that is really frustrating. Not just from not just from a driver's standpoint. I can only imagine as a driver. Your foot to the floor. Your foot is to the floor, and there is nothing you can do. There is nothing you can do.
You're open for draft and someone in front of you to wiggle.
Really? And I mean, it's cool to see a pack of cars fly by side for 2 laps at Texas. But then when that pack gets spread out and you start to realize, oh, nobody can pass, then you have a problem. Now, inverting the field after each round, not a bad thing. Didn't hate it as much as I thought I would. Here's my thing for the All-Star race. I'm going to say, here's what they need to do. Less rounds. Just make it like a regular stage 1, stage 2, stage 2. Make it like a regular race. You have stage 1, you have stage 2, you stage 3. You go stage 1, you invert after that. Stage 2, you invert after that. Stage 3, balls to the wall, go. 1 mandatory pit stop. That's how it should be. That's how I think it should be. You make you have stages 1 and 2 be pretty short. That you can have be 20 laps. Stages 1 and 2 could be 20 laps. But then there's no reason why you can't make the final stage 60 laps and put a mandatory pit stop in there and try and make some strategy out of it. And then here's the thing that bothered me the most is they have this fifth stage that's going on, and they're like, oh, by the way, we're going to have the pit stop competition and everything, and whatever happened with that? What? You can't throw... It's like they shoehorned in this pit stop competition to try and make some kind of strategy out of it.
But they made the mandatory pit stop mean something, and I didn't think that was that wasn't the worst idea in the world, because it quite literally showcased why racing is a team sport.
Yes.
Yellow line to yellow line. I don't think that was the worst idea. In fact, I thought that was the biggest home run of the race. Was that, all right? This last stage here, all right. We've reset. We've re-racked it. Your first 4 rounds, cumulative finish have set the lineup. All right. We go racing, and in the first 20 laps, you've got to make a green flag pit stop. And it's going to be a competition between you and the other. I think there's 21 cars out there total. You and the 20 other cars to see who can have the fastest yellow line to yellow line. And a lot of it's going to depend on the driver. You saw some drivers get dinged for speeding penalties. I think Dylan and Kyle Busch got dinged for speeding penalties. And Chase Elliott's crew and Chase Elliott came out on top there. Yellow line to yellow line. Best through, he held his pit speed, and the crew got out. I never did see a time for the crew though.
Yeah, I didn't either.
I think Fox intentionally did that so it didn't kind of give it away, but then they gave it away because they showed the 9 pit crew with 3 officials down there. All right, we're reviewing everything. Okay, the 9 team won. I'll figure this out. Mike Joy's and when we come back from commercial, we'll tell you who won the pit crew challenge. Mike, I hate to tell you, man. We all already know, but I didn't have such a problem with that. I'll give them this. We crapped on this. We crapped on this hard when they announced this format. I'm not a fan of the 6-round deal, but I appreciated what they did to make the fast cars try to earn their starting position for round 5 that then ultimately set up for the 10-lap shootout. I appreciate what they did now looking back at it, but I don't think you should have to bring a calculator with you to the racetrack or to your couch to figure out what's going on, or because if you don't have cell service, you can't rely on Bob Pockrass, okay?
No, you cannot.
That's the thing. Right? Thank God for Bob Pockrass. But yeah, I look, the racing was actually halfway decent, better than I thought it would be. And I think this is it's not a very heavy marker strike, but it's a very thin line strike for win in the track specific package column. All right,
I would agree with that.
So because the 510, whatever it made the racing a little bit better than the 550. Look, hey, I think we all know the 550 is going to be coming up. This is the way its direction going. But Rob, I'm going to say this again. I've said it before. Broken record. What would that race have looked like if you have a 2-inch spoiler on the back of that car? I think you would have had a really good race, a really good all-star race. You might have had a guy like Kyle Larson and Chase Elliott and not be able to recover from racing side by side with Brad Keselowski going by, because then they couldn't tag team to catch him. It would only have to been on pure speed, and I think that would have been a little bit more exciting and more upset win. But overall, I think Rob, Detroit and Texas surprised us, at least from the Cup side. Texas surprised us, okay? And it was actually not the worst all-star race in the world. So good. It sucked that it wasn't on Fox. I think that should tell you something.
Westminster Kennel Dog Show got is apparently more of a priority for Fox than the All-Star Race.
I can't believe that for a second, but whatever. Why couldn't the Westminster Dog Show be earlier in the day? I don't know, but
there's okay. I'm gonna be for a minute. There's a number of weird things in the All-Star Race. Overall, I'm not gonna say anything bad about the racing product. The racing product was actually really good. Yeah. It was actually really good.
I agree.
It's everything that was around it. It was the format. It was the even in some cases, I thought a lot of the pre-race was in it. Sammy Hagar is playing a pre-show to start the. I said something about it.
Everything's bigger in Texas, and it was quite the show.
I thought, okay, I get that, but I said something on Twitter, and someone called me a clown for it. Thanks, guy. Appreciate you. Because I'm sitting here thinking, like, this is the most ridiculous thing in the world, and if this is popular, how much longer until NASCAR's BS fan council decides that this is something that they want to see more of? And that's what I meant by that. Like, every time NASCAR tries these new things, I feel like they're pushing it on us. And they say they have this fan council, and I know I'm getting on a totally different topic here. They say they have this fan council, but there's no way that this quote-unquote fan council is actually asking for the things that NASCAR is doing. Like, there's nobody, I don't think anybody asked for Sammy Hagar to play a pre-race concert that you can't even hear. It's as dumb as a snake pit. I think the snake pit at Indianapolis is dumb. I've been about this. I think it's the dumbest thing in the world. You're there to watch the race. Why are you trying to watch a concert when there's cars going around in circles around the concert? It's stupid.
It's not aimed at you and me, though. It's not. It's aimed at the people who aren't.
How are you hearing a concert? If I'm going to a concert, the point of going to a concert is to hear my band, the band that I want to hear, play live. How is this a better show when you're hearing the band, but you can barely hear them because there's engine noises around it? This doesn't make sense. So Sammy Hagar playing. You can like Sammy Hagar. There's nothing wrong with liking Sammy Hagar. I just think the fact that that's how they decided to do the pace laps was a bit over the top and ridiculous. Again,
it did seem a little long. It
was very long.
Like that was what killed me. I'm like, okay, we're going to go through the whole 3-minute song here.
We did go through the whole song.
Yeah, that was a little bit over the top. Yes. I don't mind. I didn't watch the theatrics in the beginning because I was outside with family, and then I came back in and watched the race.
You're lucky.
But I got in time to watch Sammy Hagar sing. Look, I didn't have a problem with that. But that was cool. That was interesting. They went through the driver lineup with that. But when you're just showing pace laps, I'm like, this is a good time to go side by side.
Or this is a better time to do what you're supposed to do during the pace laps, which is talk about the starting lineup.
Yep, I agree.
I'm tired of Fox. I'm tired of Fox doing this stupid thing where they show the top 10 in this stupid comic book style, and on the side of the screen instead of the frickin' middle where you want it to be. And then they decide, the top 10's done. We'll just run the rest at the bottom of the screen where nobody's going to pay attention for most of the time. And if you want to see where your favorite driver starts, screw you. Just NBC still does full. Well, I don't know if they do it anymore, but they did. They have done it in the past. I don't know if they're going to do it with NASCAR, but they still do full grids. Okay, full starting lineup grids. They don't talk about every driver. They usually go to the stupid in-race reporter or whatever, like ESPN did. But look, man. Something's got to be done about this pre-race crap. That was awful on Fox's part, and I'm so glad they're done after this because that was just awful, garbage stuff. I had no idea. I mean, you're talking about a starting lineup that everybody drew for, and I have no idea who's starting where because I can't figure out or watch a good starting lineup like you're supposed to have. So I'm talking about pre-race. Let's talk about post-race now for a minute. Eddie Gossage, the big surprise was actually a bunch of light-up drones saying thank you, Eddie. Much to my dismay, I really thought he was just going to, have a crew go down there after the race and shove some dynamite into turn 1 and 2 and just blow that thing to all the smithereens like he should have done and say, we're starting over! we're fixing this crap, and as my final thing, I'm going to apologize for ruining this and blow it up. Didn't happen. Oh well. I wanted it to happen. Didn't happen. But, okay, overall, All-Star Race, good racing. Thumbs up from the racing product. If we had just stuck to that and no gimmicks, no crappy pre-shows, no awful post-shows, just straight balls to the wall racing for a predetermined short number of laps, 40 laps, 50 laps, 60 laps, however you want to do it, then you got an All-Star Race. 22 of the best drivers in the series right now going toe-to-toe for 30, 40 laps in an All-Star Race. That's what I'm talking about. That's great. Everything else, complete BS. Josh, before we move on to SRX, what are your thoughts? What are your final thoughts on the All-Star Race?
I didn't really have anything else to add. I mean, I'm not big on gimmicks or, the All-Star Race was supposed to be fun. The racing product, I think, overall was fun.
But there was too many breaks.
But you
didn't get to see a lot of it play out, and that was frustrating to me.
You gotta take the good with bad, I think. I think some of the good racing was a product of the inverts and the number of inverts that they had. Look,
was fine. Inverting the field after each round is I don't have a problem with that. I'm actually in favor of that. It's having so many rounds that it makes the first four completely pointless.
You're in Texas. They do everything bigger in Texas, and that has been one of the staples of Eddie Gosch's presidency there. And I don't know who the next guy is. I can't remember if they've already announced that or not. But if it goes back to Texas next year, or if it ever goes back to Texas, we'll see. We'll see what happens. We'll see what happens next year. Rob, I think we need to move on to SRX, though.
My final question, though, is when we talk about SRX had a 100-lap feature race. 2 heats to get into it.
Mm-hmm.
What racetrack have you ever been to where the feature race was 10 laps? The All-Star Race's feature race was 10 laps? Do you feel gypped? Do you feel a little bit gypped? Because my dad called me and said, what was the point of the first 5 stages? I said, I don't know.
That is a hard one to argue. Again, I think it's all about. I think that if Kyle Larson blows a tire each round, he could lead up until the last one. Blows a tire each round, he doesn't win that race because of the inverts. It's a cumulative finish in the first 4. That's why you race until the end, and that's what they did. And I get your point. I see your point, and I get your dad's point. I think that's a very microscopic way of looking at it, in my opinion.
Okay.
But I can't wholeheartedly disagree with your point. I see where you're going with. So speaking of feature races, for time's sake, we probably didn't move on to SRX. That was a great race.
I was first of all, I was very impressed with CBS's presentation.
Me too.
CBS's coverage was really, it was so much more refreshing than the crap I watched on Fox. I'm sorry. It was so much more refreshing.
You checked off a couple boxes. Paul Tracy and Fox are both checked off.
Okay. All right. My enemies list is growing. And speaking of PT, who junked the first SRX car?
Hey, you know what? I don't think that was caused by the spin. I think he ran into Marco, pushed Marco out of the way, and that's where he got the damage from. I don't think he got.
Why was he chrome-horning Marco out of the way, though?
I didn't get him. Like, what is Paul Tracy doing? Just let Marco back up, and then let him go, and then you can go because you're the one that got spun. Don't punish Marco. Poor Marco.
PT, man. Marco was having a good race there. It was nice to see Marco up front in something that wasn't Indianapolis. That was nice.
It was good to see Marco run up in the top half of a field instead of the bottom quarter. So that was. I enjoyed the racing, though. I mean, the heat racing was good. And then the feature, I like the Danica. I wrote down here. Danica's the fan-friendly, not fender-friendly cautions. I thought that was. They said we're just going to throw a caution now because it is about the fans. It's not about a season-ending points total. It's about being fun for the fans there and at home. And my goodness, hey, They just lobbed up the ball, and Ray Evernham and Tony Stewart crushed it out of the park, man. Great job.
Look, man, I didn't expect SRX to have a caution clock. Let's just say that. That's what I saw it as. Danica could call it whatever she wants. Alan Bester could call it whatever they want. SRX could call it whatever they want, but it's a caution clock.
Well, I don't think they throw it if everyone is within 2 seconds of each other. You know, if they're all right there racing, mixing it up, I don't think they throw a caution, but because the leaders got away a little bit, they're like, okay, hold on, let's reset here. Boom. I mean, this is for fun.
I know.
This is for fun. This is pure entertainment.
I get it. Nobody wants to go and watch Willie T. Ribbs go 2 laps down. Nobody wants, which, I'm sorry, I don't want to crap on Willie T. because I love that guy. I love that guy. Everybody loves him. But man, when you go out there and you say, simulator, the only thing good about a simulator is a sex simulator, and then proceed to say, oh, actual quote. I know Josh is laughing about this, but that's an actual quote from Willie T. Ribbs. I'm not lying. You can look it up. That is an actual quote that he said in an actual press conference. He said the only simulator he would ever get in is a sex simulator. That is an actual thing that Willie T. Ribbs said. And he trained by boxing, too, which is fine. But you got to get behind the wheel of a car, too, buddy.
Yeah.
You got to get behind the wheel of a car, too. Everybody else you're racing with has been racing semi-regularly for the past 10 years, and I don't know what Willie T. Ribbs has been racing semi-regularly for the past 10 years. Maybe a little iRacing could go a long way for Willie T. Ribbs. I'm just saying. Still, no doubt he's a good driver, but I think he needs a little bit more help and experience with these cars.
I can't argue with that. You know, you definitely wanted to get some simulator time. You wanted to do a little bit. You want to take full advantage of practice, and it's just a shame that he's only got 5 more opportunities to at least this season to do it. But I enjoyed it, the racing. I think I really like that the guys really played it conservative in the heats, and then it's like, all right, guys, let's flip the switch. And next thing you know, Marco's driving down low, 3 wide, shoving Doug Colby and who was it? I wrote it down here.
Tony Stewart.
Tony Stewart for the lead, and I'm like, okay, Marco came to play. He came to play, and that. But again, going back up, this is what this is all about. We wanted to see that beating and banging. I like that they had control, and CBS kind of allowed it. Where Ray Evernham said, "Hey, we're going to bring a backup car out for Greg Biffle. His car's busted. Throw him in there." He just about won in a backup car with. I'm surprised did he have
fresh tires? Fresher tires?
Well, he had. Okay, so they did them. There were the 2 heats were 71 total laps. Okay. He had 39 lap old tires to start the feature, the 100 lap feature. So while their tires were a little worn, he did still have some more fresh rubber on his tires.
He had a little fresher rubber.
Yeah, but it wasn't a large amount. But I'm surprised they didn't take the tires off his old car and put them on his original car and put them on that. And then I also wanted to say too, before the feature, Bill Elliott had issues. And they said, we're not going to start the race until Bill Elliott is ready, or we just can't wait any longer. I'm like, win. That's a win right there.
Well, it's a lot like IROC. It's a lot like IROC. Because when you have identically prepared cars, it's not like the team did anything wrong. I mean, the sanctioning body straight up screwed up. So it's not the driver's fault. It's not the team's fault. There's no teams. It's just drivers. It's not the driver's fault that the car broke down. I mean, if there's no power to the car, you got to be like,
no fuel pressure.
What did you guys do? My car is broken. Can I get a new one, please?
They said he had an electronic wire failure. He had no fuel pressure, and that's kind of an important thing in a race car. You need fuel pressure. But a win. I can't wait I get to watch it, and I will get to watch the next 5 live, with the exception of the one during the Pocono race weekend. I'll be able to watch 4 of the last 5 races live. I'm looking forward to it. I had to record this one and watch this one on Sunday morning before the IndyCar race. But I even stayed off social media. I'm like, I'm going to stay off social media. I don't want to see who wins until I watch it. And I was very pleasantly surprised. And you can either mention it or I will save it for later in the show, in the segment.
Well, I was very pleasantly surprised by everything that happened. Before I reveal who ended up winning this race, my one criticism and one critique, I guess I'll say, is that 2 15-minute heats seemed a little bit redundant and unnecessary. I think they would be better off by 1 15, because here's the thing. I don't understand the point of having 2 heats when you don't have anybody that's trying to get into the field from the heats, and there's nobody advancing through the heats.
I think it'd be better if they split the field in half, where you have 6 cars race, and another one, and make it like 10 minutes or something like that.
Something like that. It just seemed like 2 15-minute heats. Not only was it time-consuming and excessive, but it really just seemed pointless to have 2 of them when you're just determining the starting lineup for this race.
It could have just been also TV. That could have been a little TV control saying, hey, if you do this, we're only going to have an hour of television. Now we're going to have 2.5 hours of television.
Right.
We'll sell more. And that could have been the driving force. But also it showed, I think it was interesting, how are these guys going to handle this? Are you going to have the guys in the first one hang back and just get the full invert and go to the front? And are the guys who win that heat, are they going to drive back up to the front, use a little bit up their equipment, potentially damage their car, use up their tires? So there is a little bit of a strategy game to it. How do you want to start the feature? Do you want to start up front as best you can? Because look at Ernie Francis Jr. He finished top 5 in both the heats, and as a result, he started in the top 5 in the feature race. So I think again, I see where you're going with, and I thought the same thing too. But it's only worrisome if you just see guys just processional, and I don't think we saw that in either of the features.
I can understand and respect that. I'm going to move on, though, because Doug Coby won the race.
Yeah,
and he was the Stafford track champion, basically. Yep. He was the local star. So he had a bunch of wheelie modified races up there in Stafford. And he came out and he showed everybody why local track champions are getting invited to this, because they deserve just as much of experience and exposure as all of the drivers that they're racing against. So it was great for Doug Coby. Great to see him just pretty much power his way through to the win. It was great. Great racing. I'm looking at the time right now, and I'm going to try and move on here. So Greg Biffle was second in the backup car. Tony Stewart was third. So really, really good overall race weekend for SRX. I'm sorry, Josh. I don't know if you wanted to say more.
No, you're good.
I'm going to cut it off because I'm worried about time.
Yeah.
I'm going to jump into the weekend wrap-up. I'm going to try and go through this as quickly as possible because there wasn't really a lot of races this weekend that, feeder series or stuff that we're going to talk about. Indy Lights, both Detroit races were swept by Kyle Kirkwood. Again, unfortunate that we had to deal with Indy Lights being in Detroit instead of being at Freedom 100. Whatever. I'll get over it never. The WEC 8 Hours of Portimao was also this weekend, and if you have Motor Trend, I guess they don't like us very much because Motor Trend broadcasts the first hour and the last hour, and in between is a bunch of car reality shows or reruns or whatever crap that my dad's watching, whatever, I'm sure. My dad watches Motor Trend. I shouldn't bash it that much, but I just personally don't care for most of those shows unless it's Stacey David's Gears, and that's on MAV TV. But Hypercar, Toyota Gazoo Racing won. That was Sebastian Buemi, Kazuki Nakajima, Brandon Hartley. They've been just killing it. There's only 2 cars in Hypercar anyway, so... And who cares? In LMP2, that was Jota Racing, Roberto Gonzalez, Antonio Felix da Costa, and Anthony Davidson, the Sky Sports commentator, won in their class. LMGTE Pro, AF Course won with James Collado and Alessandro Pierguidi. I hope I didn't screw that name up. LMGTE AM, Satillar Racing, I think that's right. I recognized one name in that whole thing, and that was Antonio Fuoco, because he ran in... F2 and at GP3, it's the only I just recognized him from to everybody else. I don't even know how to pronounce their names. I don't know who their names are, but congratulations to those guys. And then IMSA WeatherTech Sports Car Championship was also at Detroit, Belle. In DPI, Kevin Magnussen, Chip Ganassi Racing, K-Mag, good old K-Mag swag, and Ringer Vanderzand, won their race in class. In GTLM, Corvette Racing, Tommy Miller, Nick Tandy, GTD, Daytona, Heart of the Racing Team, Roman DeAngelis, and Russ Gunn won that race. Outstanding performance, Josh. Go ahead and give me your quick outstanding performance here.
Doug Coby, I mean, just that. I was impressed. I expected him to do well just based on how the heats ran. I didn't expect him to win. And for him to hold off a very powerful backup car with Greg Biffle behind the wheel. And, Greg Biffle's a 2-time NASCAR champion. And Tony Stewart, he's a 3-time NASCAR champion. And he basically won everything but the Daytona 500. Two very talented guys. And he held them off. And I think he showed, hey, we, like you mentioned, we short track champions. We guys, even this guys in the Wheel and Modified series, we can get this done. You put us on a short track, we'll go toe to toe. I was impressed. It's a shame it's the only one he's going to be running this year because he was going to be exciting to watch.
Hey, maybe he'll get that. Maybe that could springboard his career into bigger and better things. Who knows? Yeah. My outstanding performance is going to go to both Pato Award and Alex Palou just for simply being really good this weekend and leading the points and creating a very fun points battle that's not between a Ganassi or a Penske car. Scott Dixon. It's still between a Ganassi car, but I primarily think of like Scott Dixon as the main Ganassi car. So
it's not between Scott Dixon and a Penske driver. It's between a McLaren driver and a non-Ganassi.
Not Scott Dixon.
Yeah, not Scott Dixon, yeah.
Sorry, it's been so long since that 10 car has been like super competitive. And no disrespect to Tony Kanaan when he piloted that. It was pretty good, but it wasn't at the level of Dario. When Dario was in that 10, it was like, man, this guy might be better than Dixon. Ever since Dario's been out of that, it's like, oh, Dixon's just the man.
Yeah.
We need Dario to humble Dixon again. That's what we need. We need Dario back to humble Dixon. All right. Now it's time for the segment we teased in the intro and made you wait like an hour and a half to get to. The upshift, downshift, the special All-Star Race edition. Now, we have a very special rule for this. All questions should be answered independently from one another. So when you're going at home and you're playing, when you do hashtag Robin Roller, ask Robin Roller, and you're playing the upshift and downshift at home, make sure every question is independent of itself. All right? So what you answered in one question, you don't have to hold yourself to keep holding that opinion into the next question. You can have a completely different opinion on this. It's totally fine. So Josh, let's go ahead and start off with the first question. The NASCAR All-Star Race should return to Charlotte Motor Speedway in 2022. Do you upshift or downshift?
I upshift. I think it should. I think it should return to Charlotte, and I think it should be run the week before Memorial Day. I think it's a good little 2-week stretch. You get kind of Charlotte Speed Weeks there, and it allows teams to kind of have like, hey, I don't have to travel for 2 weeks. I'm home. I think that's good for the crews, especially. The guys who are on the road, from the spotters, the crew chiefs, the over the wall guys, the behind the wall guys and gals. It's a nice 2 weeks break, in a sense, from travel. And I think that's warranted. I'm going to upshift for that, just simply that, and I think it belongs in Charlotte.
I'm going to agree with you. I'm going to upshift as well. I think it was more entertaining in Charlotte, plain and simple. I think the Bristol and now Texas, I just don't think it's very good. Now, if it wants to return to Atlanta is very similar to Charlotte, I'd be okay with that too, maybe. But Charlotte's the home. Charlotte's your home. Like you said, I mean, the All-Star Race, every team, you have the MLB All-Star break, you have the NBA All-Star break, they take week-long breaks off from games.
Yep.
NASCAR should be able to do the same thing. Be like, hey, you guys don't have to travel. You still have to show up on Saturday night and race a fun race for some money. But in terms of prep, I mean, you guys have 2 weeks to prep for the Coke 600. Just use this as a testing ground for next week. Look, man, I'm in your boat. I think Jamie McMurray even explained it on the Fox broadcast. He was even more in favor of it staying in Charlotte and returning there, because even Jamie Mack, he said he liked it more because he was like, there were more times to interact with fans. There's more opportunities to hang around with family. There's more opportunities to be closer, hands-on at the shop. It's just better for everybody, I think. You usually have a lot of fan tours coming to those race shops. I mean, this past year, you had one opportunity, really, this past week to do that. Now previously you had 2 weeks to come down and check out all the race shops, and drivers would be more than happy to hang out with fans during that time because it was a less stressful couple of weeks. So I'm upshifting with you on that. I think that we need to stay in Charlotte. Next question here. With Daytona no longer scheduled as the July 4th race, the NASCAR All-Star Race weekend should become the July 4th staple event. Do you upshift or downshift this, Josh?
I do. I'm going to upshift. I think it'd be good to slot that in there. I mean, the MLB All-Star Game's kind of around this time. It's usually middle of July-ish.
It's either the week after the July 4th, I think. I think it's usually the week after.
It's in the teens, typically around that time frame, a month of the time frame. And I think, hey, you gonna know that, the All-Star Race is July 4th weekend. Where it's at, I don't know. I think that'd be one way to kind of reinvigorate it, give it a little bit more meaning. Look, it's gonna be cool to go to Road America. You're going to Road America on July 4th. That's great. Indianapolis, when it was there last year.
God, that was awful.
Having Indianapolis have two of the most important dates, patriotic dates on the U.S. calendar, that was cool. But
tax day.
The All-Star Race on July 4th weekend, I think, would be really cool to see, and you know where it's always going to be, and it's not Daytona. If it's not Daytona, make it the All-Star Race, so I upshift. I like the idea.
I understand where you're coming from, but I'm downshifting because I still think July 4th should be Daytona, and the fact that we're not going to Daytona on July 4th is a frickin' travesty. So no matter what, I'm going to downshift on anything that says we're not going to Daytona on July 4th. I'm sorry, that's just how I'm going. I think we should be in Daytona on July 4th. There's no freaking reason why we're not. And if they're going to say, oh, the weather's bad, well, the weather's always bad in Florida. Get over it. The Daytona 500 was freaking rained out. And the Daytona 500 has been rained out for the past couple of years. I mean, just get over it. Deal with the frickin' rain. You might get lucky one of those nights. Everybody knows what's exciting on July 4th weekend. So, all right. Next question here. Without getting into vehicle and package specifics, to reinvigorate the All-Star Race, NASCAR should play it as an invitational for the previous year's playoff teams from the 3 national divisions. Do you upshift or downshift this?
This was a tough one because
what? This is weird. This is confusing me. Go ahead and give me your answer, but
I think it'd be cool to see all 3 of the national divisions get a shot at the All-Star, race, even if you kind of had to do it like a class deal. I think it'd be cool to see, or if you invite a couple drivers from the Xfinity and truck to race a cup car. I just think if you mix them up, I think that's a bad idea. But if you invite them, the drivers, to drive a cup car, I think that's cool. So I kind of got thrown into neutral on this one. I'm just not sure how you do that, and especially when the Xfinity cars are right now faster than the cup cars. I don't think that'd look good. I don't care what anyone says. I just think that'd be a little sketchy. Be like saying your best shooter in professional basketball is playing for the Fort Wayne Mad Ants. You know what I mean? It's just not going to work out. Why isn't he playing for the Pacers, right? So I'm going to throw it on neutral on this because I think there's parts of this that look really cool on paper and would look cool on track, but then there's other parts that don't.
My personal opinion, straight up, is that no, I'm downshift. I don't like that idea at all. Anyway, I mean, no disrespect to you. I get what you're saying. Yeah. If you came up with that question, but. No, I mean, you want to take the All-Star Race and you want to make it between NASCAR's All-Stars. Now, there was a time where that made sense. Like, people were pointing out, there was a time where there were 50 cars showing up and an opportunity to just take the 20 best drivers and put them together was a great opportunity. It still is. I'm not saying that taking the 20 best drivers is not a bad idea, but you want to keep it from the Cup Series, because if you want to have an Xfinity All-Star Race, then have an Xfinity All-Star Race. If you want to have a Truck All-Star Race, have a Truck All-Star Race. But the Cup Series, these are the people, these are in the top of their game. These are the people who have worked their way up through the ladder to get to where they are. I mean, like you mentioned, the Mad Ants and the Pacers. Well, where's the NBA G League All-Star Game? Do they have one? I know minor league baseball has an All-Star Game, but that's a bit different.
Yeah,
I don't think I've ever heard of. I don't think the G League has a All-Star Game. I know the ECHL does, so hockey does. So I guess it's not uncommon, but I don't know. I'm of the opinion that the All-Star Race should be reserved for the Cup Series. Final question here before I turn it over to Josh for the history segment. An All-Star Race is no longer a necessary event in present-day NASCAR. Do you upshift or downshift the statement, Josh?
I upshift. I don't think it's a necessary event. I think you have 30. Currently, you have 36 races on the schedule. What I would much rather see, with so much talk about Nashville, again, this is total speculation. No matter what happens with Nashville and North Wilkesboro, I kind of stand by this. $1 million, I'd rather see SMI or Speedway Motorsports kind of say, hey, you win these 4 races, you get $1 million. You get $1 million extra from us. If you won these 4 races out of 4 tracks, whatever those are 4 shall be, you get $1 million. You kind of have their own mini Winston Noble among their own tracks instead of just the crown jewel races. On top of that, it's just got too gimmicky. It's too different. I don't like the comparison. The NBA All-Star Game. Look, NBA, I'm sorry, it's trash basketball. I don't like it at all. I don't believe it's real basketball. And
WNBA supremacy.
And the NBA All-Star Game is just underscores that. It's nothing. No one plays defense in a real game to begin with. But the All-Star Race, it's just, I just don't think here's what I'd rather see.
It's amazing to me you say the NBA All-Star Game is bad. I mean, it's not. To me, it's fun to watch guys shoot threes from mid-court, but it's not as bad as the Pro Bowl, man. Anyway, you can continue.
Well, the Pro Bowl that's just a that is the all-time worthless All-Star game.
Is worthless,
the NFL is the NFL Pro Bowl. But I'd much rather see the decision come out and say, hey, we're taking the All-Star Race away and we're giving it to the North Wilkesboro Dirt Race. That is I'm going to stand by that. I just don't think I don't think, and Rob, to be fair, I don't think the Clash or the All-Star Race have a point anymore. I don't think they're necessary in NASCAR 2021. And I'm sorry, that's just kind of how I feel. And when I look at the product that they're putting on in both those races, if the product were to change, I'd change my opinion.
It's hard for me to disagree with you on that, and I am actually going to upshift as well, but for a different reason. I'm not saying, look, here's the thing. Everything can be saved. Everything can be saved.
Fair. Right
now, no, there's no way. You don't need to be putting on this thing. Everybody takes it as a joke, especially, like I said, you have 5 pointless heats and a 10-lap feature. It's stupid. That's stupid. It's entirely pointless.
It's gimmicky.
You make the first 5 stages 4, I guess. The 5th stage kind of mattered. Yeah. The 5th stage should have just been, the 5th stage was the heat race, basically. It was, okay, come in, you go race, you do your pit stop, and then wherever you finish, that's where you start the feature. That was the heat race. The first 4 things were just whatever, just fun races that we get to put on for no reason, waste of fuel, waste of resources, waste of time and money, no reason for any of it. And then you get to the feature. No, it can be saved. But as of right now, no, there's no reason to have an all-star race. There's no reason to have an all-star game in any stick and ball sport, period.
I agree with that. I will agree with that, too.
None of them matter anymore because no players, no drivers, nobody takes them seriously. There was a time where people did legitimately take these things seriously. Man, maybe the MLB All-Star Game, that's probably the only one I think people still take seriously.
Yeah.
Because at least that's kind of fun to see the best pitchers and the best hitters in the league go toe-to-toe. That's actually fun. That's something
I will give you that. I will definitely give you that.
Most places.
That baseball's the only one that is truly worth watching.
Right. NBA, like you said, no defense. Guys just hucking threes from half court. Who cares?
Yeah.
To some people, that's interesting. To other people, it's not. I guess NHL has an All-Star Game. I don't think they have one this past year, but they typically do.
Yeah.
I don't know how people feel about that. I can't imagine it's thought of any better than... Because like I said, in hockey, you could see these two guys play each other in a regular game. It's not like you're going to see, I'll say as a Mariners fan, I'll take my favorite Mariners right now. It's not like you're going to see Randy Johnson pitch to Edgar Martinez, right? You're not that those guys are on the same team, first of all, but on a normal day, you wouldn't see it. You wouldn't see Randy Johnson pitch to. Let's go through the 90s baseball greats. So just say he's pitching to Edgar Martinez as a Mariner, Ken Griffey Jr. as a Mariner. Sorry, Mariners fan. You're not going to see that. You're not going to see that except in the All-Star Game. NASCAR needs to introduce something that you're not going to see in any other race, and it can't be gimmicks. It can't be gimmicks. Gimmicks are not going to sell it. You have to introduce something that you're not going to see in any other race. And previously, I think the All-Star Race did a good job at that with the open, really up until probably the turn of the 2010s, I think the All-Star Race was a banger. It was one of the best races to watch. I think it can get back to that, but you have to make it worthwhile again. First of all, the first thing they have to do, $1 million is nothing. It's nothing to these drivers. Inflation, $1 million in 1985 was something. That was. I don't think
they got $1 million in 1985.
Right.
I think. Don't hold me to this. I think Darrell Waltrip took home $250,000. That doubled his salary that year.
Yes.
If he took home the whole thing. All right. When they introduced $1 million in I think it was the early 90s. All right. That maybe added 50% more salary to it. But let's say Jeff Gordon
then in the 90s, $1 million was worth more then.
Exactly, it was worth
than
more.
It is now.
Exactly. When Gordon was racing, he was probably making at the end. He was probably making $13, $14, $15 million a year. Mm-hmm. He won the All-Star race. Great, I got $16 million. This is not worth much. It's worth more to drivers today because I'd be surprised if William Byron's making $3 million. All right, as a driver. So it means more to him. But still, yeah, you got to make it.
You have to double the purse. You have to raise the purse because you have to incentivize drivers to race hard for it.
Yeah.
And you have to incentivize teams to show up and encourage their drivers to race hard for it and basically say, hey, if you win this, we'll give you a cut. You get a cut of it. You get all this extra money, and we get a bunch of extra money to go do R&D stuff to make our cars faster to make you win more.
Yeah.
I think going to the All-Star race is, if anything, for teams, it seems more like it's taking 2 steps back for them. You go to the All-Star race, you have some fun, but at the end of the day, you just wasted money and time and resources on something, and the payout isn't even going to make up for that. Even if you finish last in the All-Star race, it's still not going to be enough to justify really even going to it. I think if they didn't require chartered teams to go, you would see a hell of a lot less cars show up to the All-Star race and even the Open.
Right. You're absolutely right.
Josh, we are way over time today, so let's go through your featured racetrack here and give all of these nice people a great opportunity to learn some great little information and history here, and then we'll wrap things up with the What's in the Windshield and let everybody go home.
Yeah, I'm going to try to get through this. I'm glad I didn't put a whole lot into this as I did before, so you'll find out in a second. So for a period of about 9 years in the United States, there were 7 oval racetracks that were 2 miles or longer in length. Indianapolis Motor Speedway was the first to open in 1909. 50 years later, Daytona International Speedway joined Indianapolis as only the second oval track longer than 2 miles. From 1968 to 1971, Talladega, Michigan, Texas World, Ontario, and Pocono were added to that list. Ontario was demolished in the early 1980s taking the number back down to 6. And then in 1997, California Speedway, now Auto Club Speedway, was built. And to that point, in 2018, there were again 7 racetracks, 2 miles or longer. And that changed because in 2018, demolition of Texas World Speedway began. And today, I will do a Texas World Speedway revisit, which I originally covered just about 2 years ago, actually, on the money, back in June 2019 in our first season. It was built by Larry Lopatin, a founder of the American Raceways Incorporated. He wanted to actually build an Indianapolis of the South, and this track operated from 1969 to 2017. It's located in College Station, Texas. If you're a college football fan, I can't tell you what college is there, but I know there's a college there. I think it's Texas A&M.
Texas A&M, yeah.
Texas
a lot
A&M?
of Texas A&M fans and all 3 Johnny Manziel fans are going to be pretty mad at you for not knowing that.
Well, I don't. Again, sorry. College football, there's too many teams. I can't get behind it. I'm sorry. All I care about is that Purdue tries to beat Ohio State and Indiana each year, and I'm good. That's about the extent of my college football give a darn. I'm sorry.
There's a lot of colleges in the world, in this country, period.
Yeah.
So if you're complaining about just Division I football, I got news for you. D2, D3, NAIA, it's worse. There's even more.
I know. Oh, I know. You don't need to tell me that. Too many. All right, so it hosted 8 NASCAR Cup Series events from 1969 to 1981. 5 were 500 miles, and the final 3 were 400. Bobby Isaac won the first race in 1969. That was the Texas 500, 2 laps ahead of second place Donnie Allison. It was his first Superspeedway victory. Richard Petty was the only repeat winner. He had 3 victories. Buddy Baker, Darrell Waltrip, Cale Yarborough, and Benny Parsons were the other 4 winners. The 1971 race was contested on December 12th, and that was Petty's 21st victory that season through 46 starts of the 48-race season. It was his second and last 20-plus victory season. On November 12th, 1972, Buddy Baker edged out A.J. Foyt by half a car length to win that race. You just gotta love that. After 500 miles, it comes down to half a car length. That's just great racing. In its final Cup race, that was on June 7th, 1981, only about 18,000 attended the race, nearly half of the crowd from 8 years earlier, but it was actually up 7,000 from 2 years prior. Benny Parsons won in a Bud Moore Ford with Dale Earnhardt in a Rod Osterland-owned Pontiac. There you go. We gotta love Pontiac. Anytime you can give Pontiac a shout-out, I'm doing it.
Love the Pontiacs.
Always. USAC raced at Texas World 10 times between 1973 and 1979. Twice each year in 73 and then again through 76 to 79. Al Unser won the inaugural race, which was the season opening race of the 73 season. Foyt won 4 times at Texas World, and Johnny Rutherford won twice. Gary Bettenhausen, Tom Sneva, and Danny Ongais won the other races there. All but the first race in 1976, the Texas 150, were 200-mile races. The Texas 150, the lone caution per Racing Reference, was 7 laps long, and it was caused by a rabbit. Yes, it's listed as rabbit. I can only imagine that there was just this rabbit playing chicken with the cars out there. I wish I could find video on what actually caused this rabbit caution, but I just couldn't find it. I'm sorry. It was a slow decline. No major races were at Texas World after 1981, with ARCA being the biggest series to visit there post NASCAR, and they had 4 races between the seasons 1991 and 1993. The track's many road course layouts were popular through the years, though, but the oval remained the popular for testing. On February 3rd, 1993, Jeff Andretti set an unofficial closed course speed record of IndyCar for 234.5 miles per hour. And then in 2009, Greg Biffle topped 218 miles per hour in a Jack Roush Ford. He was hauling the mail. Yeah. Don't you wish we could see that at Michigan still today? I think we can do it. I really do think we can. Yeah, we just got to get the right package, folks. Right package, right tire. We can do it. I know we can. So in early March 2015, track CEO Bill Mather announced that Texas World Speedway would close to make way for a new housing development. The facility will see its last cars, so to speak, when it played host to damaged vehicles following Hurricane Harvey. Construction and destruction of Texas World Speedway began on July 19th, 2018, on the housing development known as the Southern Point. Today, most of the track remains, but a hole has been cut out of Turn 4, and the banking and paving in Turns 1 and 2 have been heavily removed, rendering the oval track completely unusable. Not just unraceable, but unusable. And then parts of the outer road course, the Roval course, if you will, has been demolished, with neighborhood roads and housing already been built in its place. You can see the remnants, if you will, of the complex on Google Maps, on the satellite view. And again, it's just kind of one of those sad deals that Texas World is gone. You know, we didn't have too many 2+ mile tracks in this country, and they all 8 were great. You know, we've lost Ontario, we've now lost Texas World, and we're going to be losing Auto Club, although it's just heavily modified, and it's going to be a half-mile oval. Nonetheless, at least the track is not closing, but we are losing a 2-mile oval. So the featured track history compiled here from Racing Circus.info, Racing Reference, The History of America's Speedways Past and Present by Alan E. Brown, and NASCAR, The Complete History by Greg Fielden. So that was just a kind of revisit with the All-Star Race here in Texas. Thought I, do that one again. It's been a while since we talked about Texas World, and I'm glad I didn't add too much because that didn't take too awfully long to do because we're over time, Rob. And but we had a lot. Once again, we had a lot to talk about, but we're not on that Indy 500 level. So I'm just going to mute my mic here, so to speak, and let you tell everyone what's in the windshield.
Yeah, the What's in the Windshield, get ready, because we got a packed weekend of racing coming your way. The Summer European stretch for Formula One begins this weekend at Circuit Paul Ricard, and we'll go through Monza on September 12th. The French Grand Prix is, unfortunately, on this Sunday. I say that unfortunately because if you know what Paul Ricard is, you know what we're going to get. Followed by back-to-back races at the Red Bull Ring in Austria for the Styrian and then Austrian Grand Prix. The NTT IndyCar Series will be in Elkhart Lake, Wisconsin this weekend at Road America. The Rev Group Grand Prix is on Sunday, June 20th. Repco Supercars finally return to action in Darwin, Northern Territory, as at the Hidden Valley Raceway for the Darwin Triple Crown. It'll be a super sprint. Glad to see the Supercars back. It's been a long time. They had the race in Victoria canceled, so it's good to see that we finally get to see some Supercars races happening. Again, $5 a month for Superview on YouTube. It's worth it. I promise. I promise you will not regret that purchase. Seriously, $5 a month. I cannot stress that enough. It's worth it. Supercars puts on great races every single race. So, next plan is Stock Car Brazil holds their next race at Velocita. I think that's right. Velocita.
Yeah, that's right.
I think that's right. Those races will be Saturday and Sunday at noon Eastern on motorsport.tv. Remember, if you have motorsport.tv, this is all free. You just have to register for an account. It's free. You don't have to pay anything. Don't pay anything. I promise you. Totally free. Watch Stock Car Brazil. And keep it there. Keep it there on motorsport.tv. Keep that app pulled up because Super Formula returns as well with their next race at Sugo. That will be at 1 a.m. Eastern time on Sunday morning, also on Motorsport TV. So Saturday night, Sunday morning in Japan. So, Formula Regional European Championship by Alpine will be at Zandvoort in the Netherlands. So if you want to see what the Dutch circuit will be like when F1 makes its return later this year, you can catch both races on Saturday and Sunday morning, either on YouTube or also on motorsport.tv. SRX will have their next race Saturday night at Knoxville Raceway, the first dirt track for the series. That will be at 8 p.m. Eastern Time on your local CBS station. Finally, the long-awaited return to Nashville Superspeedway has arrived. The NASCAR Camping World Truck Series, Xfinity, and Cup divisions will race on June 18th, 19th, and 20th, respectively. It will be the 14th Truck Race, 22nd Xfinity race, but it will be the inaugural Cup Series race on the 1.333 repeating concrete mile. Track, I said repeating just to be funny. It's not actually repeating. It would be funny if it did, but technically it is an oval, so technically you could say it is repeating if you really wanted to, but don't. In conclusion, thank you so much for listening to this show. We had a lot of fun today. We went over. We know it's the All-Star Race. We had a lot to talk about. We're sorry. But hey, we hope you enjoyed it. We hope you learned something. And like I said, go ahead and let us know your thoughts on Twitter. Tweet us, #RobinRoller. Anytime we're here, we'll get it. Anytime you want to get in touch with us, we're here. So thank you guys so much for listening to us. Please let us know what you think about us anytime. For Josh Roller, my name is Rob Peters, and this has been the Racing with Robin Roller podcast. Have a great weekend of racing, everybody. Stay safe out there, and make sure you just have a great summer. Stay cool. It's going to be hot, I guarantee you. Have a great week, everybody. We'll see you next time. Thanks for listening.